With iRacing, what we get to do is participate in a timing-related task under the influence of adrenaline, and you can't sleep afterwards. Precision while under adrenaline is very difficult to do. My name is Greg West. I'm a member of the United States Skeleton Team, 2018 Olympic alternate and 2018 U.S. National Champion, as well as avid iRacing user. I was watching the 2010 Olympics with my roommates, maybe had a couple of beverages, and one of my roommates dared me to do it. He's like, "You can do that." I was like, "I can do that." I filled out an online application, still with beverage in my hand. And I got an email 2 weeks later from a recruitment coach saying, "Hey, we think you would be a good candidate for skeleton." It looked at I played college sports, and they looked at that background. They invited me to come up to Lake Placid and give it a try, and they threw me off the track from the halfway mark, and I've been doing it for 8 years.
My name is Stratton. I got involved in skeleton slightly by accident. I grew up in New Hampshire. I grew up ski racing, went to a ski academy in New Hampshire, and I just knew about it through the winter sport community. I always knew I wanted to get involved in it, but didn't really know the right time for it. We went to the track, met this wonderful woman, and she recommended that I reach out to the bobsled coach just because of my athletic background. So she gave me his number, and that was an intimidating phone call, but I made it. That was a Tuesday, and he asked me what I was doing on Saturday. I said I had no plans, so I showed up at the Olympic Training Center in Lake Placid, took some physical tests, and 4 months later I made the bobsled team, and then I switched over to skeleton the year after. I found iRacing through my boyfriend, Greg West. A couple summers ago, I was joking that he needed a hobby, and just because skeleton can kind of be all-encompassing. Both of us work remotely, so between work and skeleton, that's kind of our two focuses. But you know, you always have to have time to do stuff that's kind of separated, just to get your mind off things. So I joked with him he needed a hobby. He loves car racing. He found iRacing, and that went from, you know, something that he did as a hobby to something that we implement into our training weekly, daily, all the time, just because we saw the huge gains that we made from it, which was kind of unexpected, but the best surprise, you know, that we've had, just because you can have fun and you can basically train at the same time.
The idea to put myself in a cockpit, especially using virtual reality, it's just really cool. I love open wheel racing and iRacing. I think it's such an amazing concept to transport myself into this other world with 20 or 30 other real living guys, and you know, you come around for that green flag and everybody's pulses are racing, and you're physically in the car. And for that hour of your life, you are not sitting in your living room, you're not sitting in your office, you are at Indianapolis, you are at Texas, you're at Watkins Glen, you're going up Eau Rouge and Spa. And the ability to transport yourself to those other places, that immersion is what makes it so cool to me. It also is what I believe allows for the crossover between sim racing and whether it's automotive racing, you know, NASCAR, Indy, whatever, or something like skeleton or bobsled.
I did kind of have an aha moment last year when we were in Germany. We were racing in Winterberg, Germany. We went to a go-kart place that's famous in the skeleton and bobsled community. And I thought it was just going to be, you know, a Saturday night. We were going to go to the go-kart place and drive around. And I was driving and I took a corner. It was about 15 minutes into the race. And I thought, wow, oh my gosh, like I just had this moment where I knew, like, wow, this is exactly what skeleton is. You can diagnose the turns the same way you do in skeleton, same way you do in ski racing. And I just had this moment where I knew that, you know, what he was doing wasn't just a hobby. It was something that was, you know, going to help us down the road. So I'm starting to get into it more now, just because I gave him crap for a while in the sense of that it was just a hobby, and now I'm really getting on board.
I'll be honest with you, when I got into it, it was strictly as a hobby, as something fun to do. I did not see the correlation initially. It took a couple of weeks, and I was like, hey, there might be something to this. And then when I started noticing the difference in my heart rate and the way that it would affect my recovery, or you know, when I'd get out of the simulator and see how soaking wet I was like, hey, you know, there's something to this. And I still wasn't quite sure exactly what it was doing. The aha moment didn't come until we got back on ice for Olympic trials. And that's when it all clicked together. I was like, these two are directly related.
Over Christmas was when we got the rig that we have now. I started using it over Christmas break. And then after that, I went back to Park City to train for the second half of the season. And the gains that I made that second half of the season was incredible. I believe I decreased my personal best from the year before about 1.2 seconds. I was right with a lot of the guys sliding, which is very difficult to do and something I'm very proud of. And I ended up winning regionals by 2.6 seconds. I always say I'm a big mental junkie. I majored in psychology in college. And so I always say that, the mental complements the physical. So just to be in that mental space, and that is a lot that has to do with iRacing too, because you feel confident in what you're doing. You're like, I've done this before, it's the same feelings, like I can replicate this. I think that was a huge thing for me, was having that mental confidence, and that translates to the physical.
My strength coach was a skeptic, to say the least. I think he thought I was full of crap. His light bulb moment was about the same time mine was, as far as like, hey, this is helping. I don't think he really realized that it was something that was helping physically as well as mentally until further on in the season, when I started sending him some of the readouts from the biometric readouts. I'm like, hey, this is starting to be a thing. Like, this is, you get done with one of these races, you're exhausted, especially if you're doing one of the higher level races or the endurance races where you're in the seat for an hour or two, or sometimes I think the Indy 500, I was in it for almost 3.5 hours. So to be your body to be stimulated for that long and to be that focused, once again, it's not just a mental response. At that point, it's a physiological response. And so I would send him screenshots of the activity, of just the readouts. And at first he's like, really? Was there something else going on? Did you just get done working out and then you came and did this and you were still elevated from that? I'm like, no, this was Saturday morning, 9 a.m. I had a cup of coffee and a sandwich. And yeah, so he's become a believer based on that. This is definitely part of my training regimen, not only mine, but my girlfriend's as well. So we build it in where it's at least a couple hours a week. Whether it's just doing time trials or racing online. She's a big fan of just racing on her own. But it's something that we've discussed with our strength coach, and we build in the volume because it does have an effect on your cardiovascular system, and it has an effect on your central nervous system in a good way. But it can also, if we're not adding that volume, incorporating that volume into our training plan, it is an easy way to actually get overstimulated. So our off days, we call them tempo workouts, and iRacing has kind of become part of my tempo as far as a recovery workout. I get to go play a video game for an hour, and that counts as working out a little bit. But it took data. Without data, it's all, we don't like to guess. Best guess doesn't win medals. Best guess doesn't win championships. Best guess doesn't win races, whether that's in auto sports or Olympic sports or anything else. We're in a technological age where guessing does nobody any good. Data is everything. So whether it's using this to find out how much iRacing is affecting my workout, using VRS to make myself faster around the track, without data, you're guessing, and if you're guessing, you're behind.